silly, but I think I'm still within the time range during which silly questions are allowed to be asked. First question for you is, what is the current renewable energy mix in Switzerland? And second question, the silly one, if you were the Hong Kong energy supremo, the ultimate decision maker, what would be your ideal renewable energy mix for Hong Kong? Thank you.
Okay, the first question is in discussion between the European Union and the Swiss government, because we have, like the European countries, for 2020 target, and this target is now in discussion. I can tell you it's about 28 to 30% of the whole energy consumption. And in the electricity, we have a special mix. We have about 60% hydro and about 35 to 40% we have nuclear. And this is what we want to change. The question for Hong Kong, I cannot give an answer. I'm only here since yesterday. I have shorter experience than you, but for me it's clear. We discussed today about energy efficiency. And here I personally, but all my experts here, see a lot of possibilities to reduce energy consumption. And for me it's clear, looking at this building sector, looking all these possibilities, do we need in every room 17, 18 degrees? Do we need to have only windows with one glass? In Switzerland we have 3 glasses, and that makes a difference. And it's also a discussion of insulation. What are you doing? You think it's not necessary to do something because it's still warm, but you need a lot of energy to cool down your buildings.
Professor Xu.
Thank you. You just mentioned that it's almost impossible to actually reduce electricity consumption in Swiss. The question is, so just want to know why. Why cannot be reduced? And the second question, very related, is about the rebound effect. For example, we use a lot of LED lights here. As you mentioned, that's probably used more than enough here. And that's, this rebound effect, LED lights are a lot more efficient than previous lights. But then, because they're so efficient, we simply use more. But then, the actual electric consumption will not be reduced. So just I want to ask, why say that is we cannot reduce the electricity consumption when we get more efficient? And what kind of reasons are behind? Thanks.
Okay, for us it's clear we have to look what can be done with the rebound effect. And we are discussing also, after 2020, the introduction of this more or less tax system that is oriented to reduce electricity consumption. With that, we think we can go in another way, but it's clear we have this rebound effect and we have to look for it. And for that, first of all, for households, I'm not sure if we can come in that dimension we want of the reduction really with only incentives and other things. I think we need also clear rules and have to fix the final consumption of appliances and so on. And we have to accept that every year appliances have the possibility to have less electricity consumption. And for that we have to give targets, first of all, to all producers of appliances. And we should also discuss if we can make these targets for our utilities. That means in some European countries, there are targets that they sell every year 1 or 2% less electricity. And that's another business model than until now. Then you think what you can bring as energy services to your consumers. What should be possible, for example, for the reduction. Should I introduce, for example, a program to have only LED lights and so on? These are ideas and these are other business models, and I think we should go in that direction.
Thank you. To follow up what you just mentioned, because I remember in one of your slides you mentioned the main measures relating to energy efficiency, and two of the boxes they are related to electrical appliances and electricity suppliers. Other than setting targets for them, what are some of the major measures, in particular related to these two boxes?
Yeah. Okay. Appliances is relatively clear. Together with our neighbors, we try to have year for year less consumption, and for that we have standards, and we have also the possibility that we use the best available technology. But we are not an island, we are in the center of Europe, so we cannot do what we want, because we have to look, and in some markets the European Union is not as far as we are technologically. For example, heat pumps. For that, we have to look if it's necessary to do something at our own level. And then the other one is electricity utilities. Until now, they made a lot of money selling electricity. And now it's a changing world. And we made the proposition that they have white certificates. That means they have the target to reduce the electricity consumption 1 or 2% per year, and to have this market for white certificates gives the possibility that some of these utilities have higher reductions, and they can sell with profit these certificates to other companies. But perhaps we could discuss now about the agency that is responsible for reduction in the economic sector, and Mrs. Studer could tell us how this model functions. We have it for CO2, that means for fossil fuel, but new now also for the electricity sector.
Yes.
So shall I just shout as well?
We've got the microphone for you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, thank you, Dr. Steinmann, for the opportunity. I think this agency is a very nice example for a public-private partnership we have in Switzerland, and it has been functioning for about 10 years, more than 10 years now. It is based on a CO2 tax we have introduced. So there's a tax being paid on CO2 emissions, and companies have the possibility to be exempt from the CO2 tax, but they have to do something for this. They have to make up an energy management plan, and they have to take up measures, they have to do monitoring and show what they have achieved. And if they have achieved that, they can get back part of all of the CO2 tax they have paid, and the others have to pay. So this is a very nice example. It works very well because we have, on the one hand, the financial incentive, but we also have the support from the experts of our agency who help the people find the best measures, help them how to achieve their reductions, help with the monitoring system, and liaise with the Federal Agency for Energy, and show very good results for them.
Any questions from the floor or from the audience? Yes, the gentleman.
Excuse me, do you have any program funding scheme to help energy efficiency with the energy performance contract, where you pay for the upgrade of the infrastructure, and after the person pays you back with the value of the savings?
Yes, we have some programs for that, and it's clear we have, first of all, utilities and also gas companies. They use this instrument to save energy. And we have now some new funds, like for example from UBS, they come to this market, because for us it's a market. That means they get the money from pension funds, and then they use it to invest in energy efficiency in the industrial sector, but also in other sectors. And they have fixed that the consumers, they have to pay the old price for a certain period, and afterwards it's a reduction. And with that amount they can also make possible that it's profitable for the investors and also for the finance institute.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Aaron Pierce, question from a consumer in your country. What number of choices do they have in the electricity they buy, and what kind of information do they have? Like in New Zealand, we have the chance to choose a supplier and know a little bit about where the electricity comes from. What's the options that you're aware of?
Okay, in Switzerland, the electricity market is not fully open. That means only big consumers with a consumption of more than 100,000 kilowatt hours a year are free to choose the utility. For the smaller one, they have not this possibility, but they get once a year a clear statement where the electricity is coming from. That means you have a guarantee of origin system, and this is a complete system, and for that every utility have to tell to the household what is inside their electricity mix. Until now there was fixed also the green electricity, but now I think it's necessary to tell them what is coming from abroad, from coal and from other sources, and what is produced also inside Switzerland. We will make a differentiation in the future. And most of the utilities have now special program for households, so they can use, for example, only green electricity with a certain mix, for example, hydropower or hydropower combined with photovoltaics and with wind.
Lady back there.
Thank you, Dr. Steinman. We'd like to know about the utilities in Switzerland. So are they all state-owned or investor-owned? So how the government gather the utilities?
Okay, these are not state-owned but public-owned, because we have three different levels of our state. The Confederation more or less has owns the production of the electricity for the railways, and all the others, they are belonging to the cantons and municipalities. For that, they have their own strategy, every canton and every municipality, to have a long-term oriented strategy for their public-owned utilities. And some have greener strategies, and others think, first of all, we should look, and that's clear, also in Switzerland, we are looking where we can make money, that the finance minister is more or less important on cantonal or communal level, what is coming out of the utility. That means they will earn money. And for that, these are not targets that are only oriented to security of supply and to be a sustainable utility. They also want something like an indirect tax for the local or cantonal budget.
Just a very quick question. My currency conversion skills are not very good, I'm afraid. But, roughly in Hong Kong, the electricity is about $1 Hong Kong a unit for a residential consumer. What would the price be in Switzerland for a typical residential consumer?
In a year, it's about
Per unit.
in a year.
Per unit.
How big is the unit? Square meter?
No. Unit of power.
Kilowatt hour.
Kilowatt hour. Yeah.
Translate this to Swiss point to 5 when you put Hong Kong dollars. It's about $2 per kilowatt hour.
2.5, yeah.
But it's about double the price in Hong Kong.
Yeah. And we have also to say, right, about 40 to 45% of our costs of the electricity is the production, and then the other one is the grid, about 45%. Then we have about 5 to 10%, 5% is local taxes, or also for the shareholders. And we have also the feed-in tariff that goes now up to 1.1 cent for kilowatt hour. But we have another grid because we have not so a dense population like in Hong Kong. And having this grid brought also to the mountain areas, and for that we have other costs than you here. In Zurich we have also lower electricity prices because we have also a certain density, but in some rural areas of Switzerland we have to pay more for the grid because we have a lot of cost for installation and also maintenance of these things.
Any more questions from the floor? Yes.
I suppose the makeup of the city is very different from places to places. In Hong Kong, you have these huge satellite residential towns and you have these tall central business district office towers. The problem I see is that you get very polarized energy use between night and day. Like this building, 8 o'clock in the morning, air conditioning fires up and keeps the building cool. And then 7 o'clock at night, nobody's there. And the residual cooling gets wasted. And the same thing happens 10 hours later, 7 o'clock in the evening, everyone fires up their residential buildings in their residential towns, these tall residential towers. Basically, what I'm saying is, are there any research into mixed-use buildings and how these residual cooling or reverse in colder climates, residual heating could be used more efficiently? How does that work in Switzerland, and what do you suggest Hong Kong, or maybe other Hong Kong experts later on this forum could elaborate on that?
Okay, I think we have not only research, we have also practice in that. And perhaps Professor Schmidt could tell us what we are doing. We are all oriented, also in the administration, but also in the companies, to look where we can save energy, also as consumers. For example, also in the building where I'm working, we know how much electricity and how much energy for heating we use every year, and we have to sensibilize our collaborators and to tell them what they can do to reduce electricity and energy consumption. And I have also now a program together with some external consultants to reduce more and more our electricity consumption. For example, we have seen that every second light is not necessary. That means we have to take it out. And all these things we are discussing with our collaborators. And I hope we can discuss it afterwards, because a person from Schneider Electric is here. There are new, in the panel. But we have also the possibility that, for example, a computer knows how many persons are inside the room, and for that they can reduce heating, because also we have some possibilities to send some heat to the floor. And that means we have a lot of possibility, first of all, as individual consumers, but then also as a system. And for that we need to measure energy consumption. We have to measure how many persons are inside the room. That means, for example, also Credit Suisse, they have now a new office building, and in that all different lights are connected, and they have sensors, and they know what is needed now from the energy and electricity point to be more or less comfortable. Professor Schmidt can give answer of an expert.
Thank you. So you
Absolutely right. The mixed use is the magic word, and if it would be possible, it would be perfect because you could cut everything in half and more. However, that is dependent on the land use that you defined before. This is one big problem in Switzerland and here. And the second one is the acceptance of mixed use in individual buildings. In Switzerland, like here, the local climate zones of the cities have been changed drastically. In Switzerland, you don't measure it, or you measure it, but you don't feel it that much because it's a phenomenal climate, cool climate. Here, and especially also in Singapore and the tropics, it is 5-6 degrees per day, which is in the majority caused exactly by this effect that you have heating rods sticking out in the environment during the day and during the night, contributing both. So the biggest programs that we have now in Singapore in our Future Cities Lab there is actually to promote exactly this. On the building level, to reduce the amount of heat and cooling, of course, which is needed by also eliminating all the airspace above with new cooling system. This is one point. But the other point is exactly what you propose, mixed-use, high-density, vertical cities. And we are convinced it is possible. That should really reduce the energy a lot. However, as we know, again from Singapore, the majority of the energy is not used in the buildings, it is still in industry. So the amount of energy that goes into the buildings is only 6%, residential buildings. Only 6% as compared to 60% into industry. And therefore, even all the cooling, the air conditioning of the buildings is little compared to the industry. On the per person level, the energy use in Singapore and in Switzerland is identical. Interesting, but in Switzerland much more is put into heating, private transportation, and in Singapore it's much less into the buildings than in Switzerland. But mixed use is the answer, so the planning departments, everybody should support this.
Thank you. Well, I looked at my watch and then it's time for us to have a break, and then we can continue our discussion after the break because we are going to have a brilliant panel discussion. People from housing department, Schneider, and an independent commentator used to be with an NGO in Hong Kong will be sharing some more about what Hong Kong has been doing or what Hong Kong should be aspiring to do in the future. And then come back in 15 minutes and then we'll start our panel discussion. Let's give a round of applause to Dr.